The world begins not with a sight, but with a vibration. It starts as a low hum, a rhythmic thrumming that rattles the glass panes of the St. Jude's emergency wing. Thoop, thoop, thoop. It is the sound of heavy metal teeth cutting through the humid afternoon air. Within seconds, the hum becomes a roar, a mechanical scream that drowns out the sirens and the city traffic. 4 shadows sweep over the asphalt, massive and predatory. These are not civilian life flights. These are marine superstallions, heavy-lift beasts of war, painted in a flat, bruised gray that matches the storm clouds overhead. They descend with a violent grace, their rotors kicking up a hurricane of grit, trash, and dried leaves. The sterile parking lot is transformed into a landing zone. Before the wheels even touch the pavement, the side doors slide open. Men pour out, not doctors, not paramedics, but operators in full tactical kits. Boots hit the ground in unison, a heavy, disciplined march that echoes like gunfire against the hospital walls. They move with a singular, lethal purpose, their faces obscured by ballistic masks, their rifles held at low ready. Inside the lobby, the air is dead. The sliding glass doors hiss open, and the lead operator steps into the climate-controlled silence. He doesn't look at the reception desk. He doesn't acknowledge the security guards who have frozen in place, their hands hovering near empty holsters. His voice is a jagged blade, cutting through the stagnant hospital air. He doesn't ask for the chief of medicine. He doesn't ask for the administrator or the head of surgery. He bellows a single call sign that feels like a ghost from a forgotten era. Where is Angel 6? The staff stares back, mouths agape, paralyzed by the sudden intrusion of a world they don't understand. They are looking for a titan, a warrior, a legend. They have no idea that the person they are hunting is already gone. Cut to the service entrance. The rain has started to fall, a cold, biting drizzle that soaks through thin fabric. Sarah stands on the curb, her frame hunched against the wind. In her arms, she clutches a single, waterlogged cardboard box. It holds the meager remains of a 20-year career. A cracked ceramic mug, a few pens, and a faded photograph. She shifts her weight, a sharp wince crossing her face as her left leg gives way, the permanent reminder of a debt she never asked to be repaid. She is the limping nurse, the woman they just discarded like yesterday's gauze. She is Angel 6, and she is seconds away from vanishing into the gray mist of the city, never to be seen again. The world of St. Jude's Memorial is not painted in colors, but in shades of exhausted gray. It is a sprawling, concrete labyrinth that feels less like a place of healing and more like a factory for the broken. The atmosphere is defined by a constant, industrial humming, the vibration of massive ventilation systems struggling to circulate air that always smells faintly of ozone, floor wax, and the metallic tang of blood. The lights overhead are fluorescent tubes that flicker with a sickening, high-frequency buzz, casting a harsh, sterile glare on everything beneath them. This is the realm of the chaotic trenches, where the clocks on the walls seem to move slower than the rest of the world. Yet the emergencies arrive with a terrifying, unrelenting speed. In this place, the staff exists in a state of permanent, waking sleep, their faces drained of expression as they navigate the white-tiled corridors. Moving through this landscape is Sarah. At 62 years old, she is a ghost in the machinery. She wears oversized scrubs that seem to swallow her thin frame, the faded blue fabric wrinkled and worn at the hems. To the casual observer, she is a relic of a bygone era of nursing. Her hair is a thick, uncompromising shock of silver, pulled back into a bun so tight it looks painful. But the most defining thing about Sarah is the way she moves. She possesses a heavy, plodding gait, a rhythmic hitch that forces her to drag her left foot slightly with every second step. It is a slow, deliberate movement that echoes through the hallways. Scuff, thud, scuff, thud. The younger staff members, the residents who haven't yet been hollowed out by the system, look at her with a mix of pity and annoyance. They see the limp, and they see the way her hands shake whenever she is standing still, her fingers twitching as if she is trying to grasp a memory that keeps slipping away. They see an old woman who is obsessive about the smallest, most menial tasks, straightening the supply closets, checking the expiration dates on saline bags, and lingering in the rooms of patients who have already been written off by the surgical teams. They call her the librarian, behind her back, mocking the way she meticulously documents every minor change in a patient's vitals, as if she is preparing for a battle that will never come. In stark contrast to Sarah's gray existence is the man who rules the ward, Dr. Julian Vane. If the hospital is a trench, Vane is the general who never gets his boots muddy. He is the arrogant golden boy, a man whose physical presence is as polished as his reputation. His skin is tan, his teeth are impossibly white, and he wears his stethoscope draped over his shoulders like a piece of high-priced jewelry. Vane doesn't walk through the halls, he strides, followed by a wake of interns who move like a school of pilot fish. He is a man who measures his worth in the difficulty of his surgeries and the prestige of his titles. To Vane, the hospital is a stage, and he is the only actor who matters. The tension between the invisible and the celebrated comes to a head on a Tuesday evening, during the shift change, when the ER is at its most volatile. Vane is standing at the central nursing station, reviewing a digital chart while 3 residents wait for him to speak. He is lecturing them on the alpha mindset of a trauma surgeon, the need to be cold, fast, and detached. Sarah enters the orbit of the station, pushing a heavy cart of soiled linens. The slow, rhythmic sound of her dragging foot interrupts Vane's flow. He stops mid-sentence, his jaw tightening as he stares at the floor. He waits until Sarah is directly behind him before he speaks, his voice a gravelly sneer that carries across the entire unit. "Sarah," Vane says without turning around, "we've discussed the noise. This is a level 1 trauma center, not a hospice ward. That dragging sound you make, it's a distraction. It suggests a lack of urgency, a lack of, let's call it mechanical efficiency." Sarah stops. She doesn't look up. Her hands shake as she grips the handle of the metal cart, but her face remains a mask of ironclad neutrality. "I'm moving as fast as the equipment allows, doctor," she says quietly. Her voice is low, steady, and lacks the tremor found in her hands. Vane turns now, flashing a smile that is devoid of any warmth. "Then perhaps the equipment is obsolete. Stay out of the way, Sarah. I don't want you tripping over monitor cords or blocking the path of the people who are actually here to save lives. HR keeps sending us these charity cases to meet some hidden quota, but honestly, you're a liability. You're a librarian in a war zone. Go find a corner to sit in until the shift ends. I don't want to see you near the trauma bays." The residents chuckle, a sharp, sycophantic sound. One of them, a young man with a brand new white coat, adds, "Maybe we can get her a walker with tennis balls on the bottom, Dr. Vane. It might be quieter." The bullying is public, calculated, and cruel. Sarah takes the abuse in deafening silence. She doesn't defend her dignity. She doesn't mention that she has been on her feet for 14 hours, or that the pain in her hip is a white-hot scream with every step she takes. She simply nods and resumes her plodding journey toward the service elevator. The staff watches her go, their eyes filled with a mixture of derision and indifference. They see a woman who has been broken by life, a subordinate who has finally accepted her place at the bottom of the food chain. They confuse her silence for submission. They think she is hiding because she is ashamed. What they don't see is the way Sarah's eyes track the room as she leaves. They don't see that while she was standing there, she was reading the monitors over Vane's shoulder. She noticed the slight irregularity in the EKG of the patient in Bay 4, a detail Vane missed because he was too busy perfecting his posture. They don't see the way her shaky hands become perfectly, terrifyingly steady the moment she reaches into her pocket to touch a small, silver coin. A challenge coin earned in a place where Dr. Vane's titles would mean nothing. Sarah disappears into the service hallway, the scuff thud of her limp fading into the general humming of the building. She is back in the shadows, where she has lived for years. She is the invisible nurse, the woman they have deemed useless. But beneath the oversized scrubs and the gray hair, the ghost is watching. She knows that the order of this world is about to be shattered. She knows that when the real monsters arrive, a stethoscope worn like jewelry won't save anyone. She returns to her work, waiting for the moment when the golden boy will have to face the truth, that the woman he treats like a charity case is the only thing standing between him and the abyss. Part 3. The Warning Shot. 10:20. Word count target, 1,1500 words. The night shift at St. Jude's has a way of stretching the soul until it feels thin and translucent. By 2 a.m., the fluorescent lights seem to hum at a higher, more jagged pitch, and the air in the emergency department feels heavy, as if the collective anxiety of the city has settled into the floor tiles. This is the witching hour, the time when the minor cracks in a person's health suddenly become yawning chasms. The sliding doors hiss open, admitting a gust of damp night air and a frantic couple. The man, a construction worker named Elias, is supporting his wife Maria. She is clutching her chest, her face a mask of pale, waxy exhaustion. She isn't screaming, she is doing something much worse. She is struggling for air with a shallow, panicked whistle that sets off an internal alarm in every seasoned nurse on the floor. Dr. Julian Vane is finishing a cup of expensive espresso at the nursing station. He looks at the clock, then at the couple. He doesn't move immediately. He straightens his coat first. He checks his reflection in the glass of the medication cabinet. To Vane, the arrival of a patient is a clinical transaction, one that must be governed by protocol and paperwork. "Get them into Bay 2, Vane commands, his voice smooth and untroubled, "and get me the insurance intake form. We need to verify their provider before we start the full cardiac workup." Sarah is already there. She had been wiping down a nearby gurney, her plodding gait bringing her to Maria's side before the residents had even stood up. She catches Maria's weight, her shaky hands suddenly finding a strange, locked strength as she guides the woman onto the bed. Sarah doesn't look at the insurance forms. She doesn't look at the computer screen. She looks at Maria's eyes. She looks at the way the skin around her fingernails has turned a faint, ghostly blue. "She can't breathe, doctor," Sarah says, her voice low and urgent. Her trachea is shifted slightly to the right. "Look at the neck veins. They're distended." Vane saunters over, his stethoscope swinging like a pendulum. He glances at Maria with the detached interest of a biologist looking at a specimen. "It's a standard acute asthma exacerbation, or perhaps a panic attack, Sarah. Look at the chart. She has a history of anxiety. Don't overcomplicate a simple presentation. It's a waste of resources." "It's not anxiety," Sarah counters, her voice gaining a rare edge. "The breath sounds are absent on the left side. Doctor, look at the subtle symptom. Look at the way her chest wall isn't rising symmetrically. It's a tension pneumothorax. Her lung has collapsed and the pressure is pushing her heart out of place. If you give her a sedative for anxiety, you'll kill her." The room goes silent. The interns who were busy pulling up digital files freeze. To challenge Dr. Julian Vane in his own bay is a form of professional suicide. Vane's face doesn't redden. It turns into a mask of cold, porcelain fury. He leans in close to Sarah, so close she can smell the expensive roast of his coffee. "Who do you think you are?" Vane whispers, the words snapped like dry twigs. "You are a floor nurse. You are a charity case with a limp and a high school education. I am the chief of surgery. I spent 12 years in the best institutions in this country learning how to differentiate a panic attack from a surgical emergency. You spent your life, where? Filing papers? Emptying bedpans? I'm telling you what I see, Julian," Sarah says, using his first name, a move that causes a collective gasp from the residents. The patient is turning blue. She doesn't need a psychiatrist. She needs a chest tube, now. "Silence," Vane bellows, the sound echoing off the sterile walls. "You are out of line, you are unprofessional, and most importantly, you are wrong. I am the one with the license. I am the one with the liability. If I say it's anxiety, we treat for anxiety. We follow the protocol. We wait for the X-ray tech to arrive. We verify the insurance, and we do this the right way. I will not have a nurse performing battlefield medicine in my ER because she watched too many episodes of Grey's Anatomy." He turns back to the residents, dismissing Sarah with a flick of his wrist. "Administer 5 milligrams of Valium. Call radiology. Tell them we need a non-emergent chest film when they have a gap in their schedule. And get this woman out of my sight before she interferes with another diagnosis." Sarah stands there, her shaky hands clenched into fists at her sides. She looks at Maria, whose eyes are rolling back into her head, her hands clawing feebly at the air. Sarah's internal compass is screaming. Every instinct forged in the dust and blood of overseas field hospitals is telling her to grab a large-bore needle and decompress the chest right now. She knows exactly where to place it. She can feel the anatomy in her mind, the second intercostal space, and at mid-clavicular line. She could save Maria in 3 seconds. But she also knows the world she lives in now. If she touches that patient against Vane's orders, she won't just be fired. She'll be prosecuted. She'll lose her pension. She'll lose the tiny apartment and the quiet life she has built to hide from her past. The empire of the villain is protected by a wall of paperwork and ego that no amount of truth can pierce. "Doctor, please," Sarah tries one last time, her voice almost a plea. "Just listen to her chest. 1 minute. That's all it takes." Vane doesn't even look at her. He is already walking away, heading toward his office to document Sarah's insubordination. He is debating liability while the patient turns blue. He is more concerned with the hierarchy of the hospital than the heartbeat of the woman on the table. The nurse in charge of medications approaches with the Valium. Sarah watches, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She sees the needle. She sees Maria's fading strength. "Wait," Sarah says to the medication nurse. "Don't give the sedative. Just wait 1 more minute for the X-ray tech. I'll go get him myself. I'll run." Sarah turns and moves. She ignores the fire in her hip. She ignores the plodding rhythm of her gait and pushes herself into a desperate, lurching run down the long, fluorescent hallway. Every step is a bolt of agony, but she doesn't slow down. She finds the X-ray tech in the break room and practically drags him back to Bay 2. "Stat film," she wheezes. "Now, I'll take the heat." The tech, startled by the intensity in the old nurse's eyes, moves. He wheels the portable machine into the bay. The image is taken, processed, and popped onto the screen just as Vane returns, ready to escort Sarah out of the building. Vane opens his mouth to speak, but his eyes drift to the monitor. The image is undeniable. Maria's left lung is a shriveled raisin. Her heart is being shoved toward her right armpit by a massive pocket of trapped air. It is a textbook tension pneumothorax. Another 2 minutes of anxiety treatment would have stopped her heart forever. The room goes deathly silent. Vane's golden boy tan fades into a sickly gray. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't thank Sarah. He simply grabs a chest tube kit and begins to work. His movements hurried and nervous, his earlier arrogance replaced by a frantic need to cover his tracks. "See?" Vane mutters to the residents, his voice trembling. "It's a good thing I ordered that X-ray. Caught it just in time. Excellent catch by the surgical team." The interns look at Sarah. They saw what happened. They heard the warning. But they look at Vane's title and then at Sarah's oversized scrubs, and they look away. They choose the path of least resistance. Maria survives, the hiss of the escaping air sounding like a long-awaited sigh. She begins to breathe again, the color returning to her lips. Vane finishes the procedure, wipes his hands, and turns to Sarah. There is no gratitude in his eyes. There is only a deep, simmering resentment. She made him look bad. She was right, and in Vane's world, being right when the chief is wrong is the ultimate sin. "Don't think this changes anything, Sarah," Vane says, leaning in so the others can't hear. "You went around my back to radiology. You broke the chain of command. You got lucky. But if you ever undermine my authority in front of my residents again, you won't just be filing papers. You'll be looking for a job at a fast food joint. Do I make myself clear?" Sarah looks at him. She looks at the man who almost killed a woman because he was too proud to listen to a librarian. She doesn't feel victory. She feels a profound, crushing weariness. "Clear, doctor," she says quietly. She turns and walks back to her cart, her limp more pronounced than ever. She has saved a life today, but in the gray world, no good deed goes unpunished. The audience, the nurses, the invisible people of the hospital, they all know the truth. But truth is a weak currency in a place built on ego. Sarah pushes her cart into the shadows, the scuff thud echoing like a funeral march. She has survived the warning shot, but she knows the real battle is still coming. She knows that Vane will not forget this humiliation. And she knows that somewhere, far beyond the sterile walls of St. Jude's, the vibration is starting. The world of war is coming to find her. And when it does, Julian Vane's protocols will burn like dry grass in a forest fire. The shift continues. The humming of the machines persists, but the silence in Bay 2 lingers, a deafening silence that marks the beginning of the end for the empire of the villain. Sarah keeps working, her shaky hands steadying once more as she prepares for the catastrophe she knows is inevitable. The shift from a normal day to a disaster does not happen with a loud warning. It begins with a change in the air. At exactly 4:14 p.m., the atmosphere inside the St. Jude's emergency department becomes heavy. It is not a sound you hear with your ears, but a vibration you feel in your bones. It is a low shaking feeling that moves up through the floor and makes the glass medicine bottles rattle on their shelves. The fluorescent lights above do not just blink, they pulse like a heart that is about to stop beating. Then, the peace is destroyed. Outside, the sound of screaming tires and metal hitting concrete fills the air. A large, armored truck, the kind used for high-risk soldiers, jumps the curb. It crashes into the heavy posts in front of the ambulance bay. The doors do not open normally. They are kicked open from the inside so hard that the metal bends. The feeling in the room changed, the narrator says in a gravelly voice. It was not just the noise. It was the sudden, deafening silence that came after. It was the kind of quiet that happens right before a mountain falls. The hospital doors fly open. A group of men in dirty, burnt tactical gear run inside. They are not doctors. They are private security guards, and they are carrying a man between them. The patient is a VIP, a very important person. In the world of the government, he is a leader. But here, he is just a body covered in blood pouring from many wounds. He was caught in a big explosion. His chest is torn apart, and his face is a gray color because he cannot get enough air. "Clear the way," one of the guards yells. His voice is shattered by fear. "We have a red code alpha. Move now." Dr. Julian Vane, the arrogant golden boy, walks out from behind his desk. He looks at the blood on the clean floor. He looks at the men with guns. For the first time, his perfect face starts to show fear. He sees how bad the injuries are. His mind is trained for easy surgeries where everything is planned. Now, his brain starts to freeze. He looks at the crushed airway. He looks at the tension pneumothorax, which means air is trapped in the chest and pushing the heart to the side. I need a room," Vane says, his voice shaking. He puts his hands near the patient but does not touch him. "We need to find his ID card. We need to follow the protocol for patients we don't know. We have to fill out the forms." "He is dying, doctor," the guard screams. "He is not breathing. Forget the papers." Vane is paralyzed. He is looking at the wrong thing. He sees a small cut on the man's leg and reaches for a kit to fix it. He is trying to treat a cut while the patient suffocates. His hands, which are usually steady, are now trembling badly. He is worried about the rules. He is wondering if he will get in trouble for doing surgery in a hallway. He is a man who loves the system, and the system just broke. "Stand back," Vane whispers. He looks small. "I need to call the boss. I need to ask another doctor. This is too messy. We have to wait for the breathing team to get here." The heart monitor makes a long, flat sound. Beep. The sound of death fills the room. The guards look at each other. They are getting angry and scared. The room is like a bomb about to go off because the doctor does not know what to do. Then, the transformation happens. Sarah, the ghost, the woman everyone ignores, begins to move. She does not limp. She does not move slowly. She pushes through the crowd like a fast ship through water. Her oversized scrubs move in the wind as she grabs a tray of tools from a cart. She does not ask for permission. She does not wait for Vane to stop being scared. "Get out of the way, Julian," she says. Her voice is not a soft whisper. It is a bellow. It is the voice of a commander on a battlefield. It is a voice that has told men to run into fire and brought them home alive. Vane looks at her. His eyes are wide. "Sarah, what are you doing? You are just a nurse. Stay back. This is a surgery." "I said move," Sarah yells. A guard tries to block her, but she does not move around him. She steps right into him. She hits him with her shoulder using a textbook judo move. He flies out of her way. She has a clear path to the bed now. She does not care about the blood. She does not care about the guns. She looks only at the patient's neck. In one fast, forbidden move, she picks up a scalpel. The room becomes deathly silent. The old woman with the shaky hands brings the sharp blade down toward the man's throat. "She did not run away. She stepped in," the narrator says. "She did not ask for a meeting. She asked for the knife." With a steady hand, Sarah performs a cricothyrotomy. This means she cuts a hole in the neck so the man can breathe. Her hand is as steady as a rock. She makes the cut. The skin opens easily. She puts a tube inside. There's a wet sound. the sound of air finally going into the lungs. But she is not finished. The man's heart is still in danger because of the tension pneumothorax. Sarah grabs a very large needle. She does not wait for an X-ray. She does not wait for the golden boy to tell her it is okay. She feels the man's chest with her thumb. She finds the right spot between the ribs. Hiss. The sound of trapped air coming out whistles through the room. It is the sound of life. The heart monitor, which was a flat line, suddenly starts to jump. Beep, beep, beep. The heart is beating again. The man's chest begins to move up and down. "He is back," a young doctor whispers. He is terrified and amazed at the same time. Sarah does not smile. She does not look for a thank you. She keeps her hands on the tube. Her eyes are locked on the man's face. She is in the zone. This is a place where time stops. The only thing that matters is keeping the patient alive. Vane is standing nearby. His face is white. He looks like he has seen a ghost. He is still holding the small kit for the leg cut. He looks like a little boy playing a game he does not understand. He just watched a woman he called a charity case do 2 very hard surgeries in less than 2 minutes. These were things he was too afraid to try. The result is clear. The man is not going to die right now. The giant has been saved. He was not saved by the famous doctor. He was saved by the woman who drags her foot when she walks. The guards put their guns down. The room is still quiet, but it is a different kind of quiet. Everyone in the room, the students, the nurses, the guards, knows what they just saw. They saw a titan show her true self. They saw the ghost become a hero. Sarah finally looks up. There is a little blood on her face, but she looks calm. She looks at Vane. She does not hide the scar on her neck anymore. She does not hide the fire in her eyes. "He is ready to go to the operating room," Sarah says. Her voice is strong in the deafening silence. "But if you don't get him there in 3 minutes, he will bleed to death inside his chest. Do you think you can handle that, doctor? Or should I call a real doctor who knows how to work?" Vane cannot say a word. His mouth opens and closes like a fish out of water. The power in the hospital has just been shattered. The empire of the villain is over. Sarah has proven she is the strongest person in the building. The room stayed silent, the narrator says, because they realized the woman they laughed at was not just a nurse. She was a weapon, and she had just saved everyone from a disaster they were too weak to face. Sarah steps back. Her limp comes back as she gets tired. She picks up a piece of cloth and cleanses the blood from her hands. She goes back to being the quiet nurse, but everything has changed. The disaster is over, but the real story is just starting. The man is rushed away. The machines keep humming, but the people in the room keep looking at Sarah. They see her differently now. They see the strength hidden under the old blue scrubs. They see the warrior who was hiding in plain sight. Sarah ignores them. She has a job to do. She knows that Dr. Vane is angry because she made him look bad. She knows he will try to hurt her career. But she is not afraid. She has faced much worse than a jealous doctor. She has faced death, and she has won. Vane watches her from across the room. His heart is full of hate. He wants to find a way to make her go away. He wants to forget that she saved the day while he stood still. He starts to think of a plan to fire her. He will tell the board she was dangerous. He will tell them she broke the rules. He does not care about the man she saved. He only cares about his own pride. Sarah knows this is coming. She can see it in his eyes. But for now, she just breathes. She has done her duty. She has been Angel 6 one more time. The gray world of the hospital is still there, but for a few minutes, the light of a true hero burned through the fog. The catastrophe is gone, but the consequences are only beginning to grow. The excitement in the trauma bay does not last long. In the gray world of St. Jude's, a miracle is often treated like a crime if it breaks the rules. As the VIP patient is wheeled away to surgery, the high-energy buzz in the room dies down. The armed guards follow the gurney, leaving behind a mess of bloody gauze, plastic wrappers, and a very angry Dr. Julian Vane. The arrogant golden boy is no longer white with fear. He is now red with rage. He stands in the middle of the room, his hands clenched. He looks at the residents, who are all staring at Sarah with wonder in their eyes. Vane cannot let that stand. In his mind, Sarah did not save a life. She stole his spotlight and proved he was weak. "Clean this up," Vane snaps at the staff. His voice is like a whip. "And Sarah?" My office, now. Sarah does not argue. She does not point out that she just did his job for him. She simply picks up her cart, the plodding sound of her limp echoing in the quiet hallway. Scuff, thud, scuff, thud. She follows him to the administrative wing, where the floors are even shinier and the air feels even colder. Vane's office is full of awards. There are photos of him shaking hands with mayors and plaques from medical boards. He sits behind a heavy oak desk and looks at Sarah as if she is a bug he is about to squash. He doesn't ask her how she knew what to do. He doesn't thank her for saving the hospital from a massive lawsuit. Instead, he reaches for a stack of official forms. You assaulted a doctor today, Sarah, Vane says, his voice low and dangerous. You laid hands on a superior. You used a surgical tool without a license. You ignored every protocol we have in place. You put this entire hospital at risk of $1 million lawsuit because you wanted to play hero. The patient was dead if I didn't move, Julian. Sarah says quietly. She stands perfectly still. Her shaky hands are hidden in the pockets of her oversized scrubs. That is not for you to decide, Vane bellows, slamming his hand on the desk. I am the doctor. I make the calls. If the patient dies while following protocol, the system protects us. But if you break the rules, you destroy the system. You are a floor nurse. You are a nobody. You have no right to touch a scalpel. He picks up a pen and signs a paper with a violent flourish. I have already spoken to the board. Because of your unstable behavior and your history of insubordination, your employment at St. Jude's is terminated. Effective immediately. You are to empty your locker and leave the building. Security will escort you to the door. This is the false defeat. The audience wants to see Sarah promoted. They want to see her get a medal. Instead, they see her getting fired by a man who almost let a patient die. Sarah does not cry. She does not beg for her job. She has seen enough of the world to know that the golden boys usually win in the short term. She simply nods. I hope the patient survives your protocol, doctor, she says. She turns and walks out. The walk of shame is long. She has to walk past the nursing station where she has worked for years. She has to walk past the younger nurses who are too afraid to look her in the eye. They have already heard the news. In a hospital, gossip travels faster than a virus. They think she is crazy. They think she finally lost her mind because of the stress. Sarah goes to the locker room. It is a small, cramped space in the basement. She opens locker number 114. Inside there isn't much. She pulls out a cardboard box. She puts in her cracked ceramic mug, the one she's had since she arrived. She puts in a few pens. At the very bottom, hidden under a spare set of scrubs, is a small, framed photo. It is a picture of a younger Sarah, standing in a desert surrounded by men in uniform. She looks strong. She looks like a queen. She wipes a smudge of dust off the glass and places it in the box. The security guard, a young man named Mike, who Sarah once gave aspirin to for a headache, stands by the door. He looks sad. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispers. The chief is really mad. My hands are tied. It's okay, Mike, she says. He's just doing what he knows. Sarah carries her box toward the exit. She has to use the service entrance because she is no longer staff. She pushes the heavy metal door open and steps outside. The weather has turned. The sky is a dark, bruised purple. A cold, biting rain is starting to fall, turning the city into a blur of gray and wet pavement. Sarah stands on the curb, clutching her box to her chest to keep the photo from getting wet. Her limp is worse now. The cold makes the old metal in her hip ache with a dull, throbbing pain. She looks like any other homeless person or struggling worker waiting for the bus. She looks small. She looks defeated. In her internal monologue, the narrator's voice returns, deep and gravelly. She thought her life was over, the voice says. She was just an old nurse who didn't know her place. She had saved a titan, but in the world of men like Vane, she was just trash to be thrown away in the rain. She felt the weight of every year, every wound, and every silence. She was Angel 6, but even angels can be broken by the cold. She walks toward the bus stop, her shoes soaking through. The box is getting heavy. The empire of the villain has won. Vane is probably back in the trauma bay right now, telling everyone how he saved the day and how he had to fire a dangerous nurse to keep everyone safe. He is drinking his expensive coffee and feeling powerful. Sarah sits on the cold metal bench of the bus stop. She looks at her hands. They are shaking again. Without the adrenaline of the crisis, the old tremors have come back. She looks at her cracked mug and wonders how she will pay her rent next month. She had given everything to this hospital, and they had kicked her out into the storm without a second thought. But as she sits there, something begins to happen. The rain doesn't stop, but the sound of the city changes. The usual noise of cars and sirens is replaced by something deeper. A low, heavy thrumming starts to shake the puddles at her feet. It isn't the bus. It isn't a truck. Sarah looks up at the dark sky. She knows that sound. She has heard it in Iraq. She has heard it in Afghanistan. It is the sound of power. It is the sound of a rescue. But for now, she is just a woman with a box sitting in the rain. She thinks she has lost everything. She doesn't know that back at the hospital, the VIP has regained consciousness. She doesn't know that the first words he spoke weren't for his family or his lawyers. He asked for the woman who saved him. He asked for the one who knew exactly where to put the needle when everyone else was frozen. The false defeat is at its lowest point. The hero is in the mud, and the villain is on the throne. But the vibration is getting louder. The ground is starting to shake. The world is about to find out that you don't fire Angel 6 and expect the world to stay quiet. Sarah closes her eyes and leans her head against the cold glass of the bus shelter. She is tired. She is so very tired of fighting. She just wants to go home and disappear. But the thwop 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 of the rotors is getting closer. The lights of the city are being drowned out by the searchlights of the military. She didn't know it yet, the narrator says, but the bus wasn't coming for her. The cavalry was. Sarah huddles deeper into her thin coat, the rain dripping off her gray hair. She looks like a defeated grandmother. She looks like a charity case. But as the wind from the approaching helicopters begins to whip her clothes, her shaky hands suddenly go still. Her eyes open, and for a second, the ghost is gone. The colonel is back. She feels the vibration in her teeth. She knows what is coming. The gray world is about to be burned away by the light of the truth. But first, she has to endure the cold. She has to feel the sting of the injustice. She has to be the woman in the rain, forgotten by the building she saved. This is the moment of the false defeat, the dark before the dawn, the silence before the roar of the engines. As Sarah sits on that cold bus stop bench, the world around her seems to fade. The sound of the rain becomes the sound of falling sand. The gray hospital walls in her mind are replaced by the jagged, sun-scorched peaks of the Hindu Kush Mountains. What Dr. Julian Vane didn't know, the narrator's gravelly voice rumbles, was that he hadn't just fired a nurse, he had tried to bury a legend. We see a different version of Sarah. This is 15 years ago. She isn't wearing oversized blue scrubs. She is wearing dusty multicam fatigues and a helmet. She isn't plodding with a limp. She is sprinting across a field of fire that would turn most men into statues of fear. This is Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Jenkins, known to every Tier 1 operator in the Middle East by a single call sign, Angel 6. She was the ghost medic. While the surgeons back at the base hospitals worked in air-conditioned rooms, Sarah worked in the dirt. She worked in the back of moving Humvees and on the floors of vibrating helicopters. She was the one they called when a soldier was too far gone for anyone else to save. She was a Titan Slayer, not because she killed, but because she fought the ultimate Titan, death, and she won more often than she lost. The scene shifts to a narrow mountain pass. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and iron. A convoy has been hit. A young private is on the ground, his leg mangled by an IED. The unit is pinned down by heavy machine gun fire. The protocol says to wait for air support. The protocol says it's too dangerous to move. Sarah didn't care about the protocol. She didn't dodge. She stepped into the storm. She crawled 60 yards through the dirt, bullets kicking up dust inches from her face, to reach that boy. She didn't have a surgical suite. She had a bag of gauze, a pocket knife, and a will made of tempered steel. She stayed in that kill zone for 6 hours, her body shielding the patient from the shrapnel of incoming mortar rounds. She held his artery closed with her bare hands, the blood hot and slippery, her fingers locking into place with a strength that defied human limits. That was the day she got the limp. A grenade had landed near them, and Sarah had twisted her body to take the blast, protecting the private's head. The shrapnel tore through her hip, shattering the bone and carving the jagged scar she now hides under her clothes. She refused to be evacuated until every one of her boys was on a chopper. She was the last one out, dragging her ruined leg through the sand, refusing to let go of her medical kit. She was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration for valor. But Sarah didn't want the medals. When the war was over and her body was too broken for the front lines, she walked away. She didn't want the parades. She didn't want to be a hero on a pedestal. She wanted to keep doing the only thing she knew, saving lives. She took a job as a floor nurse at St. Jude's. She traded her rank for a name tag that just said Sarah. She chose the gray world because it was quiet. She chose to be invisible because she had seen enough fire to last 10 lifetimes. She let people like Dr. Vane look down on her because their insults didn't hurt, not compared to a mortar blast. She let them call her a charity case because she knew the truth. The contrast is palpable. On one side you have Dr. Vane, a man who wears his stethoscope like jewelry and thinks a busy afternoon in the ER is a war zone. On the other side, you have the woman he just fired, a retired lieutenant colonel who has performed surgery while being hunted by enemies. Julian Vane saw a limping old woman, the narrator concludes. But the desert remembered a titan. The shadows knew her name. And very soon, the silence she had lived in for years was about to be broken by the sound of those who never forgot what they owed to Angel 6. The flashback fades. Sarah is back on the bench. The rain is still cold, but the shaky hands in her pockets are no longer a sign of age. They are the hands of a warrior waiting for the signal to move. The street in front of the bus stop is empty and dark, save for the orange glow of the streetlights reflecting in the growing puddles. Sarah sits perfectly still. The cold has seeped into her bones, but she does not shiver. The plodding rhythm of her life has finally come to a dead stop. She looks at the cardboard box at her feet, already getting soft from the rain. To anyone passing by, she is just a woman who has lost her way. Then, the rumble begins. It starts as a low growl in the distance, a sound that vibrates through the metal bench and into Sarah's spine. It is not the sound of a city bus. It is the synchronized roar of high-performance engines. Suddenly, the wet street is flooded with light. A motorcade of black SUVs with flashing blue and red lights rounds the corner, moving with a speed that ignores all traffic laws. They are followed by 2 armored trucks. They don't slow down, they form a perimeter, blocking the entire street and cutting off the hospital entrance. But the real power is coming from above. The clouds seem to rip apart as the thwop, thwop, thwop of heavy rotors becomes deafening. 4 Marine Super Stallion helicopters descend through the mist, their powerful searchlights cutting through the rain like giant white swords. They don't land at the airport. They don't land on the hospital roof. They hover directly over the street, the downdraft of their blades turning the rain into a horizontal storm that sends trash and umbrellas flying. The world came for her, the narrator's gravelly voice says over the roar. They didn't want the man with the awards. They didn't want the chief of surgery. They wanted the nurse. Armed men in tactical gear, real Marines, not private guards, fast roped down from the side doors. Their boots hit the asphalt with a heavy, disciplined thud. They move with a singular purpose. The lead officer, a man with silver hair and 4 stars on his shoulders, looks around the dark street until his eyes lock onto the small woman sitting on the bench. He doesn't walk, he marches. He stops directly in front of Sarah. The rain is pouring off his cap, but he doesn't blink. He stands at perfect attention and brings his hand to his brow in a crisp, sharp salute. Colonel Jenkins, the general bellows over the wind. The Secretary of Defense is awake. He says he isn't going anywhere until he sees the woman who saved his life. Sarah looks up. She doesn't look surprised. She looks like someone who has been waiting for a long-delayed phone call. She stands up, her limp prominent as she balances herself. She doesn't reach for her box. One of the Marines immediately steps forward, picks up the wet cardboard box as if it were a chest of gold, and carries it for her. "I was fired, General," Sarah says, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I don't have a badge." "You don't need a badge where we're going, ma'am," the general replies. "We're going back inside, and this time, we're setting the rules." Inside the hospital lobby, the scene is pure chaos. Dr. Julian Vane is standing near the reception desk, trying to explain to a group of confused reporters why the military has surrounded his building. He is still wearing his stethoscope like jewelry, trying to look like the hero of the hour. "I performed a very difficult emergency procedure," Vane is saying into a microphone. "It was a high-pressure situation, but my team and I managed to." The front doors explode open. A wall of Marines enters first, clearing a path through the lobby. Then comes the general. And walking beside him, still in her wet, oversized scrubs, is Sarah. Vane's face turns a sickly shade of gray. His mouth hangs open. "Sarah? What are you doing here? I told you to leave. You're trespassing." The general stops in front of Vane. He is much taller than the doctor, and his presence makes the golden boy look like a cardboard cutout. "You are Dr. Julian Vane?" the general asks. His voice is a low, dangerous rumble. "I am the chief of surgery," Vane says, trying to puff out his chest, "and I had to terminate this woman for dangerous behavior and breaking hospital protocol." The general leans in. "You fired the woman who held the heart of the Secretary of Defense in her hands? You fired a recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross because she was faster than you?" She has shaky hands," Vane stammers, looking at the reporters for help. "She's a liability. She's a charity case who can't even walk straight." The general's face goes dark. "She has shaky hands because she held a man's artery closed for 6 hours while being shot at in a valley you couldn't find on a map. She has a limp because she used her own body to shield a private from a grenade. You call her a charity case? I call her a titan." The general turns to the reporters, his voice booming through the sterile lobby. "This woman is Angel 6. She has saved more lives in the dirt than this man has in his entire air-conditioned career. Today, she saved the man who runs the military of the United States while this doctor stood by and watched." The victim, the high-ranking official Sarah saved, is wheeled into the lobby on a gurney, surrounded by his own elite medical team. He is weak, but he is conscious. He raises a trembling hand and points at Sarah. "Colonel," he whispers, his voice cracking, "thank you for the air." The entire lobby goes deathly silent. Then, one by one, the younger nurses, the ones who had been too afraid to speak up, begin to clap. The sound grows into a roar of applause that shakes the fluorescent lights. Vane looks around, realized he is trapped. He tries to speak, to offer an excuse, to find a way to save his reputation. But the general isn't finished. "You're finished here, Vane," the general says. "I've already spoken to the board of directors and the governor. Your protocol just cost you your license. You're lucky we don't take you with us." The Marines form a circle around Sarah. They don't treat her like a nurse. They treat her like a queen. They lead her toward the elevators, leaving Vane standing alone in the middle of the lobby, the cameras capturing every second of his shattered pride. The librarian is gone. The ghost has been seen. As Sarah steps into the elevator, she looks back at the golden boy one last time. She doesn't look angry. She looks pitying. She knows that titles can be taken away, but the skill to save a life under fire is something he will never possess. The doors close. The thwop, thwop, thwop of the helicopters continues outside, a victory song for the woman who spent years in the shadows. The cavalry didn't just arrive to save her. They arrived to show the world who she really was. The dust finally settled at St. Jude's, but the hospital was never the same. The empire of the villain had been pulled down in a single night. Dr. Julian Vane's fate was as cold as the hallway he once ruled. His medical license was revoked following a massive investigation into his safety protocols and his cowardice during the extraction site disaster. He was last seen working at a lowly Botox clinic in a strip mall, checking expiration dates on syringes with hands that now shook far more than Sarah's ever did. He became the very thing he mocked, a man hiding in the shadows of a dying career. Sarah's fate, however, took a different path. She didn't just return to her job, she was asked to lead. The hospital board, desperate to fix their reputation, offered her the position of director of trauma operations. She accepted on one condition: that the gray world of bureaucracy be replaced by a culture of competence and heart. The hospital was eventually rebranded, and a small plaque was placed at the entrance of the trauma bay. It didn't list her awards or her rank. It simply read, "For those who stand when everyone else runs." The moral of Sarah's journey is a reminder to us all. True heroism isn't measured in the sharpness of your suit, the prestige of your title, or the golden boy smile you show to the world. It is measured in the quiet moments of crisis. It is found in the steady hands of those who do the work when no one is watching, and in the courage to do what is right even when the protocol says to stay silent. Sarah reminds us that the people we overlook, the ones with the limp, the gray hair, or the oversized scrubs, are often the ones carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that true strength is often hidden in plain sight, please hit that like button. It helps us share more stories of heroes who walk among us every day, unnoticed until the moment they are needed most. If you believe that karma always finds a way and that the truth eventually comes to light, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a tale of justice and vindication. Thank you for watching, and remember, never mistake silence for weakness.